Ladies and gentlemen, we're all different people. We all come from different parts of the globe. We all grow up and ultimately live in different circumstances. But the human condition is to go head-to-head in competition. We're competitive by nature. And there are few activities where one can prove true intellectual, not physical, but intellectual dominance over another. Some examples include how fast you can get Wordle, how fast you can solve Sudoku, your score on a geography test. But they all pale in comparison to a head-to-head game of chess. And sometimes you play a game of chess so dominant, it is coined your immortal game. Best game that you've ever played. And in today's video, I will be sharing a game with you that was breathtaking. An absolutely dazzling display of a bunch of brilliant moves according to chess.com and an accuracy score of 100%. Here we go. This was a widely requested game on this channel for quite some time. And we're actually going to be looking at this game with the black pieces. Our protagonists are Levon Aronian, who at the time of this game was rated over 2,800. It's one of the biggest secrets secrets for newer chess fans who, know Magnus, Hikaru, myself, and that's it. Levon Aronian has been 2,800 a bunch in his career. At the time, he represented Armenia. Now he represents the United States. This was a game played in Tata Steel in 2013 in the prestigious tournament. And the player with the black pieces is Vishwanathan Anand, 5-time world champion, legend of chess from India, Tiger of Madras. And this game was sensational. It opened with d4. And nowadays, in 2024, the meta at top level is to put the knight on f6. It's actually not to allow a queen's gambit, for whatever reason. And the reason is that nowadays, systems with e6 are very popular. Knight f6 and e6 just seems to be the norm. And the lines are trending toward Catalans, or for black to put the bishop on b4, targeting this knight, which would be a Nimzo-Indian defense. But back in the day, d4, d5 was all the rage, and one of the reasons it was all the rage is because of this move c6. This is known as the Slav defense. Yes, Vishy Anand doing his best Slav impersonation after he played this game. He proceeded to get himself a Lada car, throw on some Adidas, and in fact, squat down to the floor. I have no visual evidence that I was in fact squatting, but I was, I promise. Knight f3, knight f6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3. This is the main line of the Slav, and generally here, black has the option to play the closed Slav, or the triangle, or the semi-Slav. I don't know what a semi-Slav is. It's like a Slav with the Adidas, but not the Lada, or the Zaporozhets, or whatever it's called. Or the open Slav, all right, the open Slav. Taking on c4, white tries to win this pawn back. Black tries to develop their pieces, but Vishy plays e6. This is known as the semi-Slav. Semi-Slav is incredibly complicated. It's a wicked opening. Basically, black doesn't develop the light-scored bishop, but black wants to take on c4, play this move b5, getting energetic space on that side of the board, and open up the position with queenside play, sometimes strike back in the center. This is one of the most studied openings in chess. By the way, highly recommend this opening to people above 2,000. It is a very powerful weapon. White now plays e3. This is the main line, and it's it could turn into a Miran, not a moron, a Meron. It could turn into a lot of different things. Knight bd7. Black is ready to either attack in the center or attack on the queen side. You'll notice that black has not committed this bishop. That's just the meta strategy. And now, and only now, does black take. Why does black take? Well, you waited. You waited for white to make the natural developing move with the bishop. Now you make the bishop move again, right? You lose control of the center, but you make the bishop move a second time. And not only do you make it move a second time, you make it move a third time. And basically, that is the silent debate among the parties here in this conversation. You're taking on c4. You're making the bishop move. You're making the bishop move again. And now it goes back to d3. And so here we have our first branch, okay? Top-level chess is characterized by these sort of branches, these variations. This position has been reached tens of thousands of times. The most popular moves in this position are a6, bishop b7, and what Vishy chose in the game, which is putting the bishop on d6. And they all have different ideas, right? Vishy comes to this game with a very specific idea in mind. White, by the way, black is not extending here. A lot of you might be wondering, why don't we just attack the knight? Short-sighted move. you actually would like your pawns to sort of create spikes restricting the pieces rather than advancing, because after this, you kind of haven't made any progress. And this pawn could just be a liability in the long run, plus you reactivated this bishop. But I understand if you're thinking of that move. Now, a6 is designed to enable c5 in the future, but if you wait a little bit too long, white will take the center completely. And then white will march down the center, and there's a lot of complicated lines, like pawn takes pawn, knight sacrifice, take back, pawn takes, etc., etc. Like there's also bishop b7, e4, and etc., etc., etc. Vishy plays bishop d6. Bishop d6 stops e4 because the answer to e4 is e5. So you will do this, you will trade, black will be completely fine. Bishop d6, right? Levon castles, because 2802 or 802 or 208 or 082, that's not possible, but you still got to castle your king. And now Vishy castles as well. Both sides have castled. White's game plan is to advance in the center with e4, e5. If we were playing torpedo chess, white would be able to do just that. What black wants to do is black wants to play this move c5. Black is not really looking for b4. Black is looking for a6, c5, as is very common in these positions. So again, rook e1, e4, Levon plays queen c2. This is a very popular move. This position has happened hundreds and hundreds of times. So far, so good. So far, nothing immortal. You understand? We're just in the opening. The brilliant moves are about to arrive. Anand plays bishop b7 because that's the point. He's trying to, again, prepare this c5 move. And now white can play e4. I mean, white can play e4 now. He could have played e4 in the last move as well. But instead of that, he plays a3. a3 has two ideas. Idea one, stop b4. Idea two, play b4 yourself. It's actually a very interesting idea. So for example, the idea to play b4 yourself is actually very valuable because it stops c5. If black cannot play c5, black's in trouble. Like if black spends the game not being able to play c5, at a certain point, white is going to make a lot of preparatory moves and finally play e4, or if not e4, white's just going to make it impossible to move, right? So that is the point, right? a3, trying to play b4. Now, here black has played a5, black has played a6, and then a5. Black has played a lot of things, but Vishy, again, plays the third most popular move. He played the third most popular move here. He played the third most popular move here, rook c8. This is a fascinating move. Vishy's team of trainers and coaches and water boys, like people who just bring him a glass of water, they discovered that the rook on c8 enables c5 without defending the pawn on b5. So against queen c2, which puts the queen on the c-file, the team of Anand came up with an idea where the pawn does not have to be defended. Black does not have to waste a move. I mean, that's, you know, making life more efficient is good. So you don't have to waste a move. So basically, against anything that white does, like rook d1, black is going to go c5, and you don't worry about this pawn being taken. The analysis apparently proves that in many lines, black is okay. Now, you may be asking, how is that possible? Because how is black okay in this position? Well, black goes queen c7 and just begins opening up an attack on this side of the board, okay? Now, Levon is a very aggressive player, which is why he plays knight to g5. He goes after the pawn on h7. Now, black has a Greek gift in this position. Black can actually sacrifice a bishop with check. It's called a Greek gift sacrifice. Do this, you play knight g4 check, the king goes here, queen g5, and this is possible, but you're not mating anybody. Trust me, it's not going to happen. Look, e4, queen h5 looks like mate. It's not. Now, you don't have to play e4. You can also play f3. You can't take because then you'd be walking right into a pin. So after you go back, you know, but he played this move fully anticipating that, and maybe h6 as well, and his idea was to rotate back to the middle. That was the point of knight to g5. It must have been a really, really, really cold shower for Levon Aronian when in this position, Vishy Anand uncorked not any of those moves. He did not play defense, and in this position, Vishy played c5 anyway. That's bad news. If your opponent ignores the threat completely, also ignores the counter strike, not to be confused with the video game, and goes here anyway with this and this just completely hanging, you could take that and attack the bishop, by the way. That's bad news. Now, in this position, white can take with the bishop, and if you take, you get mated. It's not checkers, though. You could go here. And then the game would go on. White can play f4, blocking this, defending the knight. That is one of the better lines that you can play. But he doesn't do that. Instead, what he does is he takes with the knight. So Levon takes the pawn on h7 with the knight. Now he's attacking this rook. And again, Levon probably calculated a handful of lines. First of all, Greek gift sacrifice. King h2, knight g4. If this, now queen h4 and black is winning, which is why king g3 is the winning move for white. Okay, so that doesn't quite work. What about c4? What about pawn takes d4? Now, what about if you trade? Well, if you trade, then white is going to go back and trade the bishop, and you're not going to have any attack. You have queen h4, I just go g3. It doesn't work. Knight takes h7. Unfortunately, here Vishy Anand shows his idea and plays brilliant move number 1. Knight g4. This is brutal. He leaves his rook to die. Says, you know what, Levon? Take my rook. The idea of knight g4 is twofold. Number 1, we're attacking the pawn. But number 2, we are opening the door for the queen. And if the rook is captured, black wins, not by playing queen h4, but by forcing the king to the corner first. It's very important. Now it's game over. Unstoppable checkmating attack. One of the only ways that white can survive here is to play like knight g6, sacrificing the knight. Rook d1, trying to clear some space. But it's over. It doesn't work. Knight g4. And now, the best move for white is h3. Allowing in some sort of queen h4, and then you have to cover up and play defense, and then I would rip open your throat over here, and then, you take the rook, and then I go knight df6, and I just keep attacking you. This knight is stuck. It has no way out. If knight h7, I can always take it. I can always take this knight as well. Very, very scary stuff. Levon plays f4. Which is given a question mark exclam, which means dubious. f4 is deemed a dubious move, blocking out this bishop. But why is it dubious? Why doesn't Vishy just show us? All right, I'm going to take a sip of my water, and then I will show you why it's dubious. It's dubious for a really disgusting reason. In this position, white no longer has to fear this because of h3. So knight g4 is just a horse standing on the outskirts of town, pressuring the white position. But here comes the real idea. Pawn takes d4, pawn takes d4. And if I asked you, what is the most natural move in this position for black? Some of you, by the way, might still be looking at this and go, rook e8. It's too slow. Rook e8 is nowhere near forcing enough. A forcing move creates danger. And right now we're looking at relative value of pieces. That is not a 5-point rook. That is a 3-point rook. We need to get some more pieces into the game. You ask me what the most natural move is? I'm going to say queen b6 because it attacks the pawn and it threatens check. To me, very natural move. White has no bishop e3 because we take. Of course, you got to go queen b6. Queen b6 is not right. It's not good enough. King h1, white is safe. There is no knight f2 check. If it's not queen b6, what on earth is Vishy going to do in this position? May I introduce you to brilliant move number 2. Bishop c5. I can't even begin to explain that move. That is another way to attack the pawn on d4, but not with the queen. The queen is still reserved for queen h4. You attack this pawn with the bishop, but this is like a beginner chess lesson. You don't attack a piece with a piece if it can be captured. Well, if he took the bishop, Vishy would have gone here, setting up queen d4, but also setting up knight d3. And if the bishop moved out of the way, queen d4 check, king to h1, knight f2 take, and you can't stop mate. If you move the bishop, you lose the queen. So white can't stop the attack. White can't stop anything. Knight takes. I would have won queen d4, king h1, knight d3, and you are getting completely swarmed by the horses. You can barely survive here. Absolutely barely. If you play all the best moves, you can maybe escape, but that is the point of bishop c5. Bishop c5 opens up 2 pieces into the game, the knight and the queen. This bishop sacrifice, but it's not even a sacrifice. You also threaten the pawn. It is completely ridiculous. You have to take the bishop too. Levon doesn't. He plays a slower move, okay? He plays bishop e2, trying to get rid of that knight, and allowing bishop takes d4 check, and now the king goes out of the way, and here black can play knight h2, threatening queen h4, but it's not working. It's not working because this knight gets out, threatening a mate of their own. Don't fall asleep at the wheel. So bishop to e2. And yeah, this next one is, again, black sacrifices a bishop to open up his knight and his queen. White says no thank you, leaving the bishop to take the pawn with check. I mean, there is literally no move more natural than bishop takes d4 check. Not a single move on the board. May I introduce you to brilliant move number 3. Knight to e5, losing a knight in the process. The knight is hanging and the bishop is hanging. 2 pieces completely can be captured. Knight to e5 activates 2 pieces as well. It activates the queen and it activates the knight. So if bishop takes, you'll play knight takes g4. The knight is getting into the game. Now, there is such a sneaky idea behind this move of knight e5. Do you know what the idea is? The idea is as follows. Queen takes d4 check, creating a battery with the queen and the bishop. And now not knight f2, but queen g1, sacrificing the queen. It has to be protected by the bishop so the king can't take it. And white smothers their own king. Knight e5 activates the knight, and it activates the queen, and it absolutely activates the queen because queen d4, queen g1 is a threat now. This is absolutely absurd. Knight to g4, then bishop c5, and then knight e5, just turbocharging every piece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces playing in the game. 21 points of material attacking the white position. Now, it's still not totally lost because white can start getting rid of the pieces. Levon is worse, but he's not totally lost. If Vichy takes here, he's going to lose his bishop. So instead of that, what he does is he plays a Zwischenzug, an in-between move. He does, in fact, give this check. White puts the king on h1, and now knight takes g4. So Vichy just hit his opponent with a crazy combination. All right, he hit him with so many punches. He ducked underneath. He hit him again. And yet, despite all of that, it's equal. If you actually count the material, it's equal. Somehow, it's 1, 2, 3 pieces, queen, rooks, and 5 pawns each. Now, black gets 2 moves in a row, black is going to win. Knight g5 is a very good move in this position. Another good move is to take the rook. It's given a question mark exclam because the computer actually doesn't realize how bad the situation is. Black will take, and then black will go here. But white will go here, simultaneously attacking and defending. No. Vichy Anand loses a full rook. Full rook. A rook gets taken out of his position, and queen h7 is a threat. And he responds to this move with yet another vicious hook. He plays f5. The idea of f5 is to prevent queen h7 and re-enable queen h4. And this is so brutal. White now can move his knight out of the position. White's knight took a full rook, and Vichy allows it to leave and allows it to stop queen h4. But the position is so winning, he has time to walk up to the knight, threaten it, take it, recreate the threat of mate. And despite white having all these pieces, there is nothing white can do. I don't understand how this is possible. Vichy cultivated this attack with his entire opening idea. Vichy's entire opening idea, rook c8, setting up c5, made this possible. This energetic approach to the position with bishop c5, knight e5, and when it's all said and done, what ultimately happens is he's got these monsters staring down at the white position. He goes queen f6, and the only way to defend the position now is to play queen to d3. That's the only way. And probably Levon did not see a way to continue the game after queen d3. You would play here, and you can't play queen d4 because this threatens mate again. But the way you survive here is you play queen g3, and you just hope and pray. Knight f2 check, take. Sorry. Take that first so the queen can't escape. Sorry, autopiloted. And now black is winning in the endgame. This is just the winning endgame. Black has absolute dominance here. Not the way I played it, but this way. But instead of that, he plays h3. Anand takes. And if you thought we were out of brilliant moves, we're not. The threat of queen h5 is queen takes h3 checkmate. Because of the pin, the only way to defend that is to play rook f3, chucking the rook. Yeah, well, plays here. And now the kiss of death from Vishy Anand, punctuating the best game that he's probably ever played. Bishop e3. This one is a light brilliant. It's like a brilliant appetizer. This is called interposing. You stop the queen from seeing the pawn. And the threat is queen h3. And the threat is queen h3 and queen g2 or queen h2. You can go here or here. You could also prolong the game, but bishop to e3. That, and there's nothing. White can't do anything. Rook f3, you just take. There's just 4 brilliant moves and a perfect game of chess. And this was just purely out of a semi-Slav, an opening that Vishy has played 100 times at the highest level, if not more. He came up with this unique idea with his team, and Levon decided, I want to get in a fight. Vishy said, this might be one of the last fights you're ever going to get in. And Levon could have been a little bit more accurate on the way, right? He could have played bishop takes h7 and f4. There are certain moments, but sometimes it just so happens your opponent walks into the battleground where you are more comfortable. You are aware of all of the ideas. Bishop c5 is disgusting. What a way to activate your pieces. Knight e5, sacrificing every piece, activating all 5 pieces of Exodia out here. Queen, the bishops and the knights. Oh my goodness. And then taking, letting the rook get captured, and just f5. With the intention to walk up to the knight and just, there you go. And that is how you're going to win the game. I mean, it's just absolutely ruthless. It is disgusting, despicable, and it is the best game that Vishy Anand has ever played. And what's funny is that he would say it's not. What's funny is that Vishy would say there was too much reliance on openings. Like, there was too much reliance on memorization, too much reliance on understanding the ideas. You know, chess games are won and lost sometimes because one player is just more familiar with the opening tricks and traps. And it's true, but we can still stare in awe because we can't replicate these types of things. So, no, Vishy still gets full credit, in my opinion. And a lot of people have requested this game over the years on my channel, and now you have it. So, there you go. That is probably the best game that Vishwanathan Anand has ever played, although it is a long list of awesome games. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.